Hello, my sixth graders. How are you? Today and for this week, we have the review of Unit 8. Okay, this is the last part of this unit, and after this, we will get a jump start on Unit 9. So, before we do anything else, I have to give you this disclaimer notice. Aviso de privacidad. A partir de este momento, iniciamos la grabación de la sesión de clases en Zoom. El uso de este video será única y exclusivamente para fines académicos. Ninguna persona puede usar las imágenes, audio o información que aquí se comparten con fines ajenos a la clase. Los derechos son propiedad del Instituto Oriente AC. Este espacio se rige bajo las normas del Manual de Convivencia del Colegio. All right. Having said that, let's start reviewing Unit 8. Okay, we have a lot of things to review and very little time to do it. So let's start with the vocabulary. Okay, if you recall, in the vocabulary, we talked about famous places. Okay, famous places around the world, especially historical famous places. So we're going to fill in the correct word in these sentences to see if we remember the correct names of these places. So let's start. We have for our options. We have statue, mausoleum, tower, monument, temple, and pyramids. Okay, let's see which one we're going to use to fill in the blank. We have the blank are burial places for ancient Egyptian pharaohs. Okay, the first thing you need to pay attention to is the fact that we have the verb to be are. We are talking about something in plural. So that'll be this right here. Okay, the pyramids are burial places. Let's see. We got that one. Let's do the next. Okay. Now we have Borobudur. Okay, that's a fun word to pronounce. Borobudur in Indonesia is a famous Buddhist something dedicated to Buddha. All right, so we have a famous Buddhist. Okay, this is a place where Buddhist people go to worship Buddha and do spiritual exercises of that religion. So we're gonna call this a temple. All right, we're gonna call this a temple. So Borobudur is a temple, famous temple. All right, let's look at the next famous monument. Oh, we have that big monument in New York, okay? It reads, the sentence reads, the blank of liberty was given to the United States by the people of France. Okay, it was given to the United States by France. So what is that? Is that a temple? Is that a mausoleum? Is that a tower? Is that a monument? Is that a statue? We're gonna say that it is a statue. The Statue of Liberty. Next, oh, the romantic place, okay, of India. We have the Taj Mahal is actually a blank where Mumtaz Mahal is buried. Okay, so we're gonna call this a mausoleum. Okay, a place where we have some people buried. Okay, they are resting there after life. All right, so that's a mausoleum, that's the Taj Mahal. Okay, this is part of your vocabulary. Okay, now Big Ben. Let's see here. Big Ben is a bell that is located in London's most famous clock. What is that? Is that a clock monument, a clock temple, a clock tower? Let's say it's a tower. It is. Okay, Big Ben is a famous clock tower. In the next image, okay, we got a bunch of stones. Okay, the name of this place is Stonehenge. So Stonehenge is a famous blank whose original purpose remains a mystery. Okay, whose original purpose remains a mystery. So what is Stonehenge? Is that a pyramid, a mausoleum, a tower, a temple, a statue? No, it's just a monument. We don't really know what the purpose of this thing is. So we're just going to call it a monument. All right, so much for that practice. Let's do a little bit of practice, okay, with something different. We have to choose the correct answers, okay, to these sentences. Again, this is based on the vocabulary that you have for Unit 8, which is what we are reviewing. Okay, in number 1, we have, is a place that is built for someone who has died. All right, that's very similar to the Taj Mahal, so that is going to be a mausoleum. Number 2, the Great of China was built to keep enemies out. Okay, we're talking about that big wall, that ancient wall surrounding part of China, or actually it's not surrounding anymore, I believe. All right, number 3, blank is a place for kings or emperors to live. Okay, we have a palace. A palace is a place for kings or emperors to live. Number 4, Saint Basil's is in Russia. Okay, it's this beautiful church that we have at the bottom of the images. Okay, so it's Saint Basil's Cathedral. That's what we have for the vocabulary. Let's take a look now at the grammar that we have to review for this unit. Now, before we get to it, remember that for the grammar, we have two parts. Two different parts, okay? And they are a little bit complicated. The first one is passive voice, okay? We have to complete these statements with the correct passive form of the verbs. Okay, before we do that, we have to review the concept of what passive form means. Okay, passive form is this. When we use the verb be plus a verb in past participle. Okay, that's what that means. When we use a verb in past participle, okay, preceded by the verb be. Okay, that's what that means. Now, when we use the verb be, we're going to use it always depending on the tense that we have to use. Okay, if we have the verb be in present, we're going to say, I don't know, is, am, are. Okay, it depends on what person we have if the tense is in present. If we have the tense in past, we're going to say was or were. Okay, if we're talking about the past. If you want to talk about the possibility, okay, you're going to use can be. All right, and then after these, you're going to use a verb in past participle. All right, so for present, we're going to use is, am, or are. It all depends on the person. Okay, is, am, or are. If we're talking about the past, we're going to use was or were. Again, it depends on the person. And if we're going to talk about the possibility, we have to say can be. All right? These are the forms of the verb be that we're going to use. And this is not limited. You can use the verb be in present perfect, in future, in present perfect continuous, in past perfect. You can use it in a lot of tenses. But for now, use it only with these tenses: present, past, and possibilities. Okay, present, past, and possibilities. Okay, that's what you're going to use it with. And then the verb in past participle. Now, remember the verb in past participle is not very complex. We typically use the verb in ed at the end. For example, travel, cooked, played, if we have a regular verb. If it's not regular, we have to change it to the past participle form. For example, eaten, taken, thought. All right? These are going to be our past participles. Right? That's how you're going to use passive form. You use the verb be and then a verb in past participle. Another important thing to remember, when we use a sentence in past participle, when we use a sentence in passive voice, we are not saying that the subject did the action. Okay, the subject received the action. That's going to be different. All right, now let me show you what I mean. Let's do the exercises so we can see just what this is all about. In number 1, in the sentence, okay, we have the temple of Borobudur, and then we have thousands of workers. Thousands of workers. Okay, this is the subject that really did the action. So if you want to talk about a sentence in active voice, if you want to understand who built the temple of Borobudur, you're going to say thousands of workers built the temple of Borobudur. That's the original sentence. But when we use passive voice, we're going to focus, okay, we're going to give priority to the object that was affected, okay? That's why we make the change and we have it as the new subject. And we say, okay, the temple of Borobudur, and we're talking about building, okay? So we're going to say that the temple of Borobudur was built, all right, by thousands of workers. Thousands of workers is the person or people who did the action, okay? That's why passive voice is sometimes confusing. All right, now let's see. For number 2, we have the Taj Mahal in Agra, India. All right, we're talking about the place where we can see the Taj Mahal. So we're talking about location. The Taj Mahal is located, I say is because we're talking about the present. The Taj Mahal is located in Agra, India. Number 3, the Taj Mahal of white marble. Now, white marble is the material that we use to build some things. So we're going to talk about it with make. Was made. Okay, I put was because we're talking about the past. In the past, the Taj Mahal was built and it was made of white marble. Oh, sorry. Oh, what happened there? It was made of white marble, okay? And it still is made of white marble. So we have to make the decision. Is it is or was? We're going to say is made. because it continues to be made, all right? It was built, sorry, I got confused a little bit there. It was built with marble, but it's still made of white marble. Okay, so we're talking now in number 4 about the Victoria Falls. Now, the Victoria Falls, okay, and we have by David Livingstone in 1855. So we are talking about the discovery. That's why we're going to say Victoria Falls was discovered by David Livingstone in 1855. Now, this may look a little bit confusing. Okay, you may say, teacher, there's a little problem here. You put was, and we're talking about falls. This looks a little bit confusing, doesn't it? That looks a little bit confusing. Victoria Falls was discovered. The explanation is this. Victoria Falls is only one place. That's why it's considered singular. It's singular because it's only one place. That's why we put was. All right, so much for that. Now, remember to use always the verb be, is, am, are, was, were, can be, and then the verb in past participle. All right, that's absolutely necessary to create passive voice. Okay, and always remember that the subject in passive voice is the object affected by the verb. Okay, we have to practice a lot with this because sometimes we get confused and we want to put the complement, all of the complement at the beginning, and that is incorrect. It's only the object affected by the verb. Only the object affected by the verb. Let's continue now with bigger and better. Well, this is actually a little bit simpler. It's not as complicated as passive voice. We're going to review relative clauses. Now, remember that to form a relative clause, we have to use a relative pronoun. In this case, for this unit, we're going to use the pronouns who or that. We have those two pronouns, and these represent a subject in most cases, okay? They can represent also an object, an indirect object, direct object, object of a preposition, but for now, they're going to represent an object, okay? These are going to be, okay, a noun. They're going to represent a noun. It can be a person, it can be a thing, it can be an animal, a concept, an idea, whatever, okay? Right, but they represent a noun. So let's start. We're going to have the connection between two sentences, all right? In sentence number 1, we say Machu Picchu is an ancient city. It is 2,430 meters above sea level in the Andes Mountains. Okay, first thing to connect is the city with it. Okay? These two words are representing the same object. So what we're going to do is take the second object. We're going to take the second object, it, and we're going to replace it with one of these pronouns. It can be that or who. Now, it is a thing. It's not a person. So we're going to use that. And we're going to say Machu Picchu is an ancient city. And then we make the change. We're going to say, okay, we're going to replace it. All right, we're going to replace it. And we're going to say that. Machu Picchu is an ancient city that is, and then the rest is exactly the same. 2,430 meters or 2,430 meters above sea level in the Andes Mountains. All right, that's what we have there. That's how we make that connection. In the second sentence, let's see. We're talking about, okay, the Moai. Remember the Moai, those strange statues on Easter Island? Okay, so we have the Moai are giant rock statues. They were found on Easter Island. Okay, so they, right there, they and statues are the same object. They are representing the same thing. So what we're going to do is take the second word and replace it with a pronoun. In this case, that, because we're talking about a thing. All right? And so that's why we're going to say the Moai are giant rock statues. And here we make the change. That were found on Easter Island. Okay? Remember that the connection always happens when you have the two words representing the same thing next to each other. That's very important. That's super important. They have to be next to each other. In number 3, we have Christ the Redeemer is a famous statue. It stands over the city of Rio de Janeiro. So we have statue, it. They represent the same thing. So we're going to do what we did with the other two sentences. Replace the second word with the pronoun, okay? And the same thing will happen with sentence number 4. John Utzon was a Danish architect. He designed the Sydney Opera House. Architect and he are representing the same thing. So we're going to replace the second word with a pronoun. Okay? Oops, my mistake. With a pronoun. In this case, who, because we're talking about a person. All right, let's see. So for number 3, we have Christ the Redeemer as the result. Christ the Redeemer is a famous statue that stands over the city of Rio de Janeiro. Janeiro. I don't know, you want to say that in Spanish, English? All right. And then for number 4, we have Jor Utzon was a Danish architect. Okay, who? In this case, we say who because we're talking about a person. John Utzon was a Danish architect who designed the Sydney, oops, my mistake, Opera House. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. That's how we make the connection. Okay, we only replace the second word that represents the same thing. Okay, the second word is changed, and then the rest is going to be exactly the same. The Great Sphinx is a monument. It's a monument that has remained a mystery to this day. That is the last sentence. Okay, the same explanation applies here. We are talking about monument and that representing the same thing. Okay, when something represents the same thing like this in two separate sentences, you can make the connection with a relative pronoun, and then you have a relative clause. This is your 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 relative clause. And this is your relative clause. Okay, we're using that or who to replace a noun and make the connection to another sentence. Now, these relative clauses technically are giving extra information. Okay, so in number 1, we say Machu Picchu is an ancient city. And then a person asks you, okay, give me more information. Okay, it's an ancient city that is blah, 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 extra information. Number 2, the Moai are giant rock statues that blah, 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 extra information. The same thing happens in numbers 3, 4, and 5. When you give that extra information, you're going to do it with a relative pronoun. Who or that in this case, okay? Now, these relative clauses are always placed, okay? This is also extra important, very, very important. They are always placed immediately, okay? Immediately after the object that they describe, okay? Immediately after. That's why, in this case, in number 1, that is 2,430 meters above sea level. This is description of a city. Number 2, that were found on Easter Island. This is extra information about statues. Number 3, that stands over the city of Rio de Janeiro. This is extra information about statue. Number 4, who designed the Sydney Opera House? This is extra information about architect. And the same thing in number 5. The relative clause is extra information about monument. It's always necessary to put these two together. Okay? Always put the object that you are describing with the extra information. Okay, always put these next to each other. Okay, always put them next to each other. Okay, don't separate the object you are describing and the extra information about the object. Don't separate it. It's always next to each other. All right, so that was a little bit complex, but that's it. That's all we have for this week. Okay, and I believe that was good. Now, let's do something a little bit different before we wrap this up. For your homework for this week, okay, you have on Servo Escolar una tarea de una presentación oral que deben grabar con un audio, okay, una nota de audio a lo mejor en su celular y subir esa grabación a la plataforma de Servo Escolar. Ahora, ¿qué debe de incluir su grabación? En primer lugar, no debe de pasar de 1 minuto. ¿Okay? El mínimo no importa realmente, con que tengan todos los criterios que están enlistados, con eso basta. ¿Ok? Entonces, en primera, estamos hablando de la unidad 8, vamos a hablar de lugares famosos. Bueno, en específico de un solo lugar. ¿Ok? Esto tiene que ser de la lista que se les dio. ¿Ok? De la lista dada del vocabulario en el video de la clase 27 de abril a 1 de mayo en el muro de Servo Escolar. Ahí pueden checar el video otra vez para ver cuál fue el vocabulario. Después van a describir el lugar con 5 oraciones y estas oraciones deben incluir por lo menos un dato histórico. ¿Ok? Y por lo menos también una de estas oraciones debe estar en la forma passive voice. Número 3, después de que describan el lugar, mencionen por qué lo eligieron con 3 oraciones y una de esas oraciones, por lo menos, ¿ok? Eso es lo mínimo. Una de esas oraciones debe tener un relative clause. ¿Ok? Asegúrense de usar vocabulario adecuado, ¿ok? Pronunciar muy bien todas las palabras, todas las oraciones, hablar con fluidez, ¿ok? Porque se les calificará, esto será parte de su calificación. Por eso deben de practicar antes de grabar el audio. Y al final lo subirán a la plataforma Cervo Escolar como cualquier otra tarea de Cervo Escolar. Más aparte, van a hacer su tarea de Pearson, ¿ok? Ahora, les puse un ejemplo. Les tengo un ejemplo, mejor dicho. De Big Ben, ¿ok? Por favor, no vayan a copiar esto porque entonces no les va a contar. Elijan otro lugar y den información que pueden encontrar en Internet muy fácilmente. Le pueden poner en Internet, para buscar información histórica del lugar, le pueden poner, aquí, les pongo, fun facts, o le pueden poner historical facts sobre el lugar, ¿ok? Ponen el nombre del lugar y le ponen una de estas dos cosas, fun facts o historical facts, y van a tener un montón de información de la cual pueden ustedes tomar la información que necesiten para redactarlo y hacer su grabación. Ahora, aquí yo redacté una descripción de Big Ben, ¿ok? Se las voy a leer. Big Ben is the common name of the Elizabeth Tower. It was named the Elizabeth Tower in honor of the years of service of the Queen. Augustus Pugin and Charles Berry built Big Ben. It was first completed in 1859. It is famous for its accuracy and massive bell. I chose this monument because I like London. It is a beautiful place that has a wide variety of typical food from all over the world. It is the best place to eat. Ok, para que vean cómo incluí los criterios, en mi primer párrafo, ahí están las 5 oraciones describiendo el lugar. En el segundo, ahí están las 3 describiendo el por qué elegí el lugar. Ahora, en el primer párrafo puse it was named. ¿Ok? Ahí está mi primer passive voice. Es necesario nada más poner uno. Si quieren poner más, perfecto. Yo puse 2. Tengo ese it was named y también puse it was first completed. So it was completed. Ahí está mi segundo ejemplo de passive voice. En mi segundo párrafo puse nada más un relative clause que está aquí. That has a wide variety of typical food from all over the world. Okay, esto está dando, this is giving extra information about beautiful place. Okay, muy sencillo de hacer. Redáctenlo, practiquen, grábenlo y súbanlo a la plataforma. That's it for today. I'll see you on Friday in our Zoom session. Okay, have a nice week. See you then.